As Al mentioned, it's a 60-unit project, 5,000 square feet of office space, 92 parking spaces, plus another 15 for the city of Norwalk. There are 42 spaces in the larger building, underneath on the first floor of the larger building. There are 50 spaces on grade on Smith Street, and at the entrance to the vehicular access to the garage below. There are 15 spaces located in the southeast side of the property that are adjacent to the historic district. And we're working with them right now to work out some of the details in terms of their handicap access to some of their buildings. So we don't anticipate any issues with that. From a circulation standpoint, from East Wall Street, you come from the north and work your way down. It's a one-way access from East Wall. From the south end of Smith Street, it's a two-way road. And about midway point at the location of the crosswalk of the new stairwell and the entrance to the plaza is a hammerhead turnaround that's been designed with a narrow entry road or a narrowing down of the road in order to help force traffic to slow down at this point here. And also, you can see in the red the traffic movement of a car that would be to turn around that got to the end and couldn't find any parking and needs to return. There is a dedicated turnaround space that's been shortened to minimize the potential of someone parking in there, and there are bollards to prevent somebody from driving into that space here. So somebody would come in, turn around, and back out and move out. So the improvements that are included in the roadway are new crosswalks, new special paving rumble strips, both at the entrance from East Wall, at the midpoint, at the crossing of the stairwell and the plaza entrance, as well as the south entrance to the site across from the Mill Hill Historic Building. I have a couple of sketches which delineate some of those access. Well, let's go through the site plan first. From a pedestrian standpoint, one coming from Wall could walk down either the sidewalk adjacent to the building, but I think we're really looking to create a more walkable street so that the narrow drive, the traffic calming devices that we're using is going to encourage pedestrian use of the street. But the idea is that you come down from East Wall and then access the plaza, step down to the water's edge. The public access easement is a 15-foot wide easement that encompasses the 8-foot wide walk and the landscaping in that area. There's a pergola, there are benches, there's a seat wall and bollards throughout that area. Again, the idea is to provide a waterfront access for the public. There's planting on both sides, and it's a well-defined walk with the pergola at the south end, and then the continuation of the walk will come out to Smith at the south end of that residential building. A sketch of coming down Smith Street. As you're walking down Smith Street, the idea is that we utilize the special paving, the rumble strip, the sidewalk, the granite curbing. On the left is a wall that will be designed and built by the city of Norwalk. It's existing wall. It's replacing the wall that's there. As we drive down, we enter the area where the first building has an entrance for the residential units. At that point, we also have a refuse enclosure. The idea is that we would blend that refuse enclosure into the wall that's being built, and that we would use some solid board fencing or gates in order to prevent the visual aspect of a refuse container, so it'll be totally enclosed. And we like the idea of using maybe some of the rough sawn wood that came out of the old building, the things that we might be using in the pergola and some of the accents. So that's kind of the view as we come down Smith Street from the north. As we come from the south and work our way up, we have a sketch of the crosswalk and how that would look as we're coming up from the south and entering into that spot where the stairs come down, the crosswalk into the plaza. We're anticipating using historic signage bollards and sign posts with demarcating signage, delineating the turnaround, the one-way access, and the crosswalk. as we move our way down through the building and out, looking back the other way from the west, looking east over the harbor, we have a sketch that delineates that view that's looking over the boat club, and a kind of a bird's eye perspective looking down towards the water. We can see the bollards, the seat wall, and a little clarification on that wall. That wall is truly a seat wall and a demarcation of the edge of really the public way. It's not a seawall that some may have interpreted it as. It's set up high on the grade. It's back behind the jurisdiction line. It's back behind the DEP line. It's back behind the mean high water line, and it's up at elevation 6.5, I believe, which is above the general demarcation line of trying to stay below that. So the only thing we have below and water side of that seat wall and bollard is landscaping, and that entire landscaped area is native perennials, grasses, and shrubs, meant to reestablish a water's edge, a waterfront with a natural landscape, as opposed to the impervious surface which is there now. Again, that's an 8-foot wide walkway with landscaping on both sides. We have a couple more views of the building and the walkway. You can see it's a seat wall, the bollards, and again, the idea is to really establish that landscape as a natural landscape. One of the items that we've included in that landscape is a low-impact development stormwater treatment. So we're taking all the roof runoff from the buildings and directing it to a surface infiltration basin. That there are actually 3 of them. There's a small basin here. There's another basin here, and then a final basin here, and they're interconnected. And as they fill up and as they overflow, they flow surface flow into the harbor after the water's been treated. So that was designed so that the first flush is treated, and any of the overflow would flow surface flow into the harbor. And what this does is it creates a non-point location of our discharge. So we have a sheet flow. It's much more environmentally friendly. It's much more sustainable in terms of limiting flow. So if we were to direct this towards a single pipe and send it out through the existing system, we would be, one, taxing that existing system, and two, creating a point discharge location, which in this case we're not. We're really just surface flowing all that water that flows out of that basin into the river, and it's after it's been cleaned. So I think it's a much better system than tying it back to the city system, only because we're not taxing that city system with this sustainable low-impact design feature. One of the other items that we've included in the public right-of-way is the inclusion of a pergola and with benching and with seating behind it. The idea is that pergola would utilize native stone that's found on the site, with also using some of the old timbers that we've salvaged from the existing building, with some metal screening and green screening of some sort, which would replicate kind of that industrial feel. So the idea is that it's kind of a contemporary structure using historic materials. And just from a site perspective, last but not least, some of our plant materials that we're using. Again, some of the native plant materials is we're using our little blue stem, big blue stem, high tide bush, liatris, some of the native materials that we're going to be using for that waterfront